Thank you. Thank you so much, Graham and Carla. Are you on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, thank you so much for having us, and thank you, Graham and Carla, for having us. Today, we're actually going to share chapter 1 of God, Sex, and Your Marriage. Julie Slattery has been phenomenal in just having us rethink about a lot of different things. And so this one is just the impact of our backstory. Let's see if we can get that going. All right, so I wanted to just let you know a little bit of just, actually, we already got who we are. Thank you, Graham. So, Dean, why did we do this? Why do we come up and just kind of fillet ourselves?
Because when we got married, we were perfect. No, we do what we do because of what we went through. And we've went through betrayal, we've gone through addiction, we've gone through financial bankruptcies, we've gone through family challenges, I guess you would say. And obviously we had kids at one time too. And through all that was nothing but big T traumas. And one day someone asked us to give our story, and everybody dropped their mouth and was like, you know, that's not normal, and I thought it was normal. And people have been asking us to share our story ever since. And so it's become a passion of to us. It's led Tina into her career. She went back, got her master's, and is just an incredible therapist today. She is the executive director over Christian Counseling Center of 70 therapists, interns, and trainees, and it's just incredible to see the education she went through, and then to become I tried to make her a stay-at-home mom, and she went back and got her master's, and here we are today.
Thank you. But I needed a supportive role. You supported me in everything. So I did forget to...
I didn't want to say that, but...
I did want to let you guys know about my shirt as mental health. It says, "Don't ghost your feelings, talk about them." So just thought I should let you guys know in case you're like, what is on her shirt?
I deal with this on a daily basis.
So who we were. So this is really both of us. This is not like a staged picture. That's me. And I was born and raised in San Jose, California, at Good Sam Hospital. So I'm the oldest of 3 kids. And I think that's about all I wanted to share about me.
I was born in Greenfield, Massachusetts. And we moved out here when we were younger. And that's all I want to share.
So in the beginning, we're really going to talk about just some of the different influences that sex had on our life growing up. So one is family of origin. And in the family of origin, for me, our family was really big on image. We had come from families of addiction and abuse. Both my parents were, my mom was the oldest daughter, and my dad was the 3rd oldest son of 11. And I come from Mexican heritage. And so in that, both of them didn't want to do it the way they were raised. So I would call myself a book smart baby. My parents did everything out of a book to try to figure out how to break the strongholds of what we grew up with. So with that, they did everything in a way that you would look like as perfect. So our family was seen as the Cleavers. Am I dating myself? Who knows the Cleavers? Okay, sure. All right, good. We even had a white picket fence, and we even had a golden retriever. So anyways, with that, I didn't know how to do feelings. We didn't know how to do feelings well at all. That's why I love feeling shirts. That was one of the big pieces I felt was broken, but growing up in that, you don't know. So that's part of the backstory of me. The other one is the way my parents talked about sex. It's very interesting. My dad told me, oh my gosh, it's not the nicest sentence, but I'm going to tell it to you because it's one that rang true all in my teenage years, which is, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? That is what I learned. That is what I learned. Do you know what my brother learned? Women are like 31 flavors. You've got to try everyone until you can pick your favorite. The gender differences were so night and day. My brother had no curfew. He's 2 years younger than me. I had a curfew. And then when I met him, my curfew went from midnight to 10 p.m.
It did, because I pulled up to the house and her dad and all the brothers were out there and her uncles, and I said, there's no way I'm walking through that line, so I honked. And it wasn't a good start. Right there, we knew it right away.
And so, again, had to be emotionally controlled. We were an emotionally controlled family. And the other piece was my big teaching growing up in my family of origin was save yourself for marriage. But it was in a very shame-based way, save yourself for marriage. It wasn't in a way of like, why? Why is that important? What is the need for that? And really understanding that piece. So I had a fear-based, shame-based fear around sex and sexuality and sex before marriage. The other piece that kind of skewed my thinking about sex a little bit is at age 10, I was sexually abused. He was not a family member, but he was someone that said he knew my family. Well, when I'm working with just this child brain, I'm believing he knows where I live, he knows my family, he knows everything, and he said if I tell, that he would kill my parents. So I believed him. So I never told. So again, now we're holding on to family secrets, and I'm just coming into puberty, and I'm trying to figure out how to navigate all this without a full logic and reasoning brain, which we don't get until we're 25 years old. So those are the different influences with me around family of origin. And then, of course, with all of that, I meet this guy. So we'll tell you what that looks like in a moment. What was your childhood like?
So my childhood was chaotic, but it was very small. She had 300 family members, I had 15. Back east, my grandparents and my parents, everybody was very religious. And so they didn't talk about sex. I didn't see anybody kiss. I didn't see anybody hug. I didn't see anybody show any emotion towards anybody except when we were departing. We were flying back to California and they were staying. So it was, I had no idea. I never had a talk. I never got anything from it. So sex was just nothing in my house. It was very difficult to be around. And we had to just figure things out as we went. So then I brought that into this. So I brought this quiet, reserved, innocent child into this marriage. I'm being facetious, of course. I just brought a very unhealthy person into this marriage and tried my best way to navigate because I knew I had a tough father-in-law to get through, but that helped me along the way.
And I think one of the things that I remember you telling me, because we were going through this, what we wanted to share with you guys was that sarcasm. Your family was very sarcastic, especially around sex and sexuality.
Yeah, that was another way. It was humility. My parents were alcoholics. My mother was really bad. And if someone brought something up or everything was told in a joke. Everything was sarcasm. Nothing was direct unless my dad was yelling at us. And so, we had to wait till my mom got to a certain point and then someone said a joke and then it just was shaming. So being the youngest and being 5 years younger than my oldest, and then I had a middle sister, I just got the brunt of everything. So if I dare ask a question or I didn't understand the joke, I got teased just relentlessly. So I learned to become very defensive, and I also learned to become very quiet. And I knew how to navigate my way around unsafe room.
Very good. And then the next one is culture and ethnicity. So for me, I grew up in a Mexican culture, and as Dean said, I have like 300 family members that all live in San Jose. We actually rent a hall at her Christmas events. Yes.
She tells me at her first event, she says, hey, we've been dating a little bit. She says, I want you to meet my family. I says, okay. So I'm thinking we're going to go over to her house. She goes, oh, no, we're going over here. And we go to where it used to be Saratoga bowling lanes. I don't know if you remember where that is. Right? And I'm like, wow, your family's bowling? Like, okay, we'll go there. But I'm like, oh, there was a restaurant there too, right? So we go in there, and we walk past all the bowling, and you just hear this loud thumping music. Boom, 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 boom. And not knowing what's happening. And we go, and they have this big area, massive area where they had events back then. And just, it's a sea of people. They're dancing, there's DJ going, there's all these things. I'm like, your family's here? She goes, this is my family.
Including the DJ.
Including the DJ. She wanted to see my family. We walked into my house. I said, this is my family. The four of them right there.
And in our culture and in my family origin, I can't talk about my family of origin without talking about my cousins because I grew up with them. And so what was hard about that, though, is remember I told you my dad came from a family of addiction. And so my grandfather was an abusive, rageaholic alcoholic. And so what I saw is how he cheated and how he hurt my grandma. And a lot of my dad's brothers were like that. My dad, because he and my mom wanted to break that cycle, read a lot of books. So my dad was emotionally controlled, so I never really saw my dad show anger because he judged anger as bad because of what happened when he grew up. And so with that, I had all these big feelings in my sexual abuse, but I couldn't talk to anyone about them. And so I ghosted my feelings and shoved them down in that. But in the family gatherings where we were, where it got bad is that, certain time of night, I always say a certain time of night the vampires come out, because if you drink too much, they reach a threshold and then the anger comes. And so that's when you want to leave at a certain time because people are going to get hurt or the police are going to get called. Didn't happen all the time, but at the bigger events it definitely did. So with that said, one of the things I learned about sex in my bigger family and culturally is that men cheat, men lie. And so I was fearful of getting into a relationship. So the minute that I started liking Dean, the minute I started attaching to him, the more afraid I was about commitment, the more afraid I was about I'm going to get hurt, because men lie, men cheat, and men are alcoholics, because that's all I saw. And so that was a big component in, because Dean was already guilty until proven innocent. So that's a really hard dance to do in love, because he grew up, like he said, with a sarcastic family who automatically accused him. And so that dance did not go well for us at all. How did your ethnicity culture affect you?
Well, I think it was just my family was very quiet, reserved about it. But we also teased. But I was going to make a point off something you said, and it's passing over my head right now. But we had a lot of anger. There was infidelity in my family for 3 generations that never got talked about. And I was very young when infidelity happened in my parents' relationship. And my dad decided to leave. It was my mom who had the affair, and my dad decided to leave and just abandon us, but who she had an affair with was a very abusive person and family. So that just brought a whole mess of stuff in with that, and I thought my dad had abandoned us. So I believed that I was going to be as true as possible, right? Because I didn't want to see any of that happen in our relationship, although I never stopped thinking about it.
Absolutely. And one of the things, he's German and English, So we're not being recorded right now. I'm going to say a very politically incorrect term, but when we had children, we called them Beaner Schnitzels. And my mom put on the cake. She had little brown arms and a white tummy, and they just thought it was the most hilarious thing. Just talk about different cultures. And his German family came, and they were like so offended. And so, I mean, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of this culture blend and this culture shock piece to us as well in our different cultures.
No comment.
So the next one is just pure social media and Hollywood and how that impacted us and affected us. So for me, when I have that image, that family image, one of them also was the way I dressed. I mean, most girls have memories of their mother taking them prom shopping. My dad went with me. I needed to make sure there wasn't cleavage, make sure that I was, the skirt was to the knees. And so I had these pieces about me that, again, I kept having this image of, I can't be damaged goods. I can't be damaged goods. I can't, he's making sure that I'm preparing for marriage and preparing me for that one person. And so in doing so, where social media really got me is Dean had 2 girlfriends that he had slept with in high school. And I'm the girlfriend, the 3rd girlfriend in his life, and I'm a virgin. So I'm now figuring out how do I work up against this? And one of his first girlfriend was on the swim team with me. And so I knew their relationship. So when you hear, it's all high school stuff, but when you hear all these things, it really makes an impression onto me. And in my peers, my first time ever seeing a nudie magazine, I was 7 years old, and it was in the backyard, and it was with a friend who showed me, right? And when I say that, it's because Dean and I started watching pornography when we were dating, and I used that as a teaching tool. I used that to try to figure out how can I be better than these 2 other girls. I automatically linked my worth with performance. And so so from the get-go, our sexual relationship was brought in with shame and brought in with not good enough. And it affected the very core of what intimacy is supposed to be. So that is the biggest piece. And then the other one was image, just being the perfect weight, making sure that you dressed well, make sure that everything, it was just like, it was all performance. And so it was one of those things that they talk about in scripture, how the outside of the cup looks so beautiful, but the inside is just, because I shoved everything down. And I just spent so much focus on what that outside was supposed to look like to be enough.
Yeah, and so for me, I was explaining this, if you guys ever seen the movie Cable Guy, Jim Carrey, and he was raised in front of the TV, that was kind of how it was for me. It was my parents, they were gone when I got up, they were gone when I got home from school, and we didn't have intimate talks, we didn't do anything. So all I had was what was on TV on how relationships worked. Or we just drank a lot, and that's how the relationships work, because that's what my parents did. My dad raged and my mom drank. And so that's all I could bring into our relationship was these thoughts and behaviors of visualization of how relationships work, but I didn't have a lot of courage to act on a lot of those things because I was very insecure, because I was teased a lot when I tried to ask questions. And so I just stuffed all this stuff down, like Tina would say, and just kept it all in, and we just tried to figure it out. Now, when we were not very Christian when we met. I had gone to church when I was younger, but we stopped in high school because we got too busy. Tina would get pulled back and forth from her grandparents on church.
I had one grandma try to save me from the Catholic religion, and I had the other grandma try to save me from the Apostolic religion. So I went to one every other Sunday. I was going to a different church, which was quite Interesting. So I really loved that I got red wine at communion at 6 years old at the Catholic Church. And I loved that at the Pentecostal Apostolic Church, it was very active. So I just remember having that tambourine and the music just being like through the roof. It was all Spanish, by the way. It was all Spanish church, so I had no idea what was being said at all, but my grandma still took me because I don't speak a lick of Spanish.
No, she doesn't. She's a pocho. It's a coconut, brown on the outside, white on the inside. And so we make fun of each other all the time like that. But it's your favorite thing. But anyways, so that's what I brought into our relationship. And why I say the Christian aspect was out of it was because we weren't taught values. And when you're not taught those values, those Christian values, right? Our biggest, our happiest thing to do is teach engaged couples classes, because we did everything wrong, right? We had sex before marriage. We watched pornography. We tried to do all these things that we thought were the right things to do. And it all came to a head the very first year we were married, and we thought we were so in love. We thought we had everything figured out. And it was a struggle that we tried to teach to newcomers and to engaged couples that you don't want to get this wrong, right? We're always going to get it wrong, but if we can give anybody a chance to right it before they start, that's what we really want.
And so, as you know, with my upbringing, the first time that I had sex, it was coded in shame with him. Because first, I'm not married. And second, now there's my belief that no one's ever going to want me now. That and I remember crying. I remember feeling so horrid and crying. I couldn't talk to my mom. I couldn't talk to my dad. I didn't want them to know. And just another secret to bury, right? So what did we learn about sex with the church? I didn't learn anything. So Julie Slattery really talks about you either learn a rule or it's just silent. For me, what I learned in the church growing up, it was silence. And even with the church, when Dean and I started going to church together, image was everything because we grew up with image. So he and I would fight the whole way there. And just so you guys know, because we were high school sweethearts, we were seen in the limelight of a lot of our peers in this wonderful way. So we couldn't have them think of us any different. So we always fought behind closed doors. And then when we walk in church, we wouldn't even be talking to each other. We'd get out of the car and we'd hold hands and we'd walk in church.
And the majority of that was my resistance to church. I had a huge resistance to church because it was judgmental, it was shaming. It was a place you went to and you had to be and dress and act a specific way. And I resisted that with everything. And so that's the fight. She was trying to grow. We were trying to get better. And I'm like, go. I'm here. There's football on and, I'm good. And she's just, no, we got to go together. We got to go. So I'd get mad. I would hold resentments. And then we'd just argue the whole way and then get out and smile.
So, what did you learn about sex in the church?
Absolutely nothing. Yeah. So I was given nothing, no tools. I think I've said that a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. But so you don't know what to take that. But I just want to say a quick thing. What really made the difference was I agreed to go to engaged couples class before you get married. Right? The church has you go through their class, and our pastor gave us a second, and he said, when's the wedding date? And it was like 8 months from when we had met with him. And he said, you could still make this right. And he said, Dean, move out, get your own place. Tina, move back with your parents. And guys, let's just take this right. And no intimacy, no contact, right? For those 8 months. And we did that. And although into our first marriage, it was really hard. I do believe, though, that made a difference in our recovery.
Absolutely. I agree. And you want to know how the devil works in that? He goes to this apartment, and there
Oh my
was
gosh,
a
that's
subscription to Playboy magazine that was still on his doorstep from the previous guy.
And do you think she believed me that it wasn't mine? Even though there's a other guy's name on it, right? It would show up covered in brown. I'm like, what's this? And I was like, oh, I can't believe you did that. I know, I'm sorry.
But
So I had to
in
throw
those-
him out immediately.
But in those things, you see that there's glimmers of where God is trying to, through others, show. And it was the caring pastor at our church. And he really did help us for the first time understand what that means, what we can do, and that God actually wants to redeem us. We didn't have that understanding. All I saw was this permanently damaged, here we come, let's just grin and bear it and let's make the most of it. And so having those people in our life in the way that's not shaming and helping us know that God wants to restore what was broke. God wants to restore what we didn't know and we didn't know any better in. And so in that time, I do believe, even though we broke past our marriage, I feel like that sacred moment that we had was the beginning of us understanding what God is designing sex to actually be.
Yeah, and learned how to be under God's favor.
Yeah.
Right, how to be covered in his protection, right? Because we step out so many times when we sin, we come out of that umbrella of protection. And when we do, it's always there to come back to. And so the goal is always to try to stay in that protection and to be in that favor. And none of us are perfect at it. And we're always going to leave. We're always going to think my way's better at some point. But the important thing is that we keep coming back and we keep trying and we keep fighting and we keep working on each other. I'm not fixing Tina, and Tina's not fixing me.
And so when we got married, what was really hard about it is, so just to kind of give you just, we wanted to do it right. We're walking down the aisle, we get married, and we actually fell asleep our wedding night. We didn't even have sex. We had mint and chip ice cream though. We did.
We both fell asleep in the limo.
We were so tired because Mexican weddings go all day and all night long, and we did not leave in the limo until late at night. So anyways, but after that, we're like, now what? Because now all of a sudden I'm seeing and feeling the permanency of marriage, and my brain is wrapped around trapped and stuck. And anytime we're not resolving something, anytime we're arguing about something, anytime that we're having stuff, I'm like, oh my God, is this what it's going to be? Is this the rest of my life? Is this how it's supposed to be? And so in all of that, what happened is I started doing a couple things. One is the consequences in marriage and sex for us because of our backstory is that I micromanaged finances in the beginning because I wanted to be one step ahead. Remember, men lie, men cheat. So now that I'm like in this marriage, he's not gonna. So I'm gonna be one step ahead of that. But in doing so, I became a very controlling, fear-based wife in trying to figure out how I can protect myself from a cheating man, which he hasn't even done yet. Actually, never. And in that, I believe I had to be the best sexually to prove my worth. And I had to believe that I had to be fit. At that time, you won't believe it, at that time I got the most compliments that I've ever gotten in my life about how I looked. I had an eating disorder. I was running 4 miles a day and I was hardly eating anything. But I was getting all the compliments. So you can see how distorted that can be in the mind of a woman of what that looks like too. So now I have to be perfect. I'm controlling the finances. He's building up resentment against me, and I'm feeling us moving further and further apart. And I'm realizing I am tearing down this house with my own 2 hands, and he is shutting down, and I feel very powerless in it.
Yeah, and with that, because I wasn't taught finances, I wasn't taught, my dad was so overbearing and so angry, but also extremely smart that I just felt so stupid my whole life, right? I felt dumb all the time. And here we go, we meet, and she's going to go to college, right? And no way I'm going to college. And so we just came in, and I said, okay, well, she runs everything, because that's how my mom would run things with my dad. He would tell her what to do, but she would write everything out. And I just thought that's what we did, right? And I let it go. I let it go for so long, but sex and our relationship and courting was behind. My dad worked all the time, so I said, that's what I'm going to do. I got to work every weekend, work overtime. I'm going to work all the time, and that's how I provide, and that's what I do. But then her controlling affected me so much, and because I'm a pleaser, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I thought pleasing her was the best way to have a great relationship. But what I realized is it was showing that I didn't care, right? I had to engage. I had to step up and not hold the resentment, right? I had to learn how to get through that. And so that had a huge effect in our sexual relationship with each other. And even though now we're full-time in church and we're doing all these things, I didn't see my parents ever do anything like that, so that's what I did. But the resentments tore us apart, my resentments.
And so these are the consequences of what happened because of our backstory. And so in here you can see under mine, the pink, is the infidelity. I ended up having an affair. Here I am so worried about him, and I'm the one that ended up in the affair. Because while I was starving myself and doing that, he was in a depression because of all that was going on. And he didn't notice me, but someone else at work did. And because I had such a shallow sense of my own identity and fear, infidelity ended up happening. And I had a lot of resentment. And I abandoned God because I believe God abandoned me. So at that time, I stopped going to church. He wasn't going. I stopped going. It was easier. Plus, I didn't want God to see what I was doing. You can see how much I knew about God. But in that, I was also in a very hardened heart place.
Yeah, and so when it came to, I talked about being a pleaser, and I always thought that was the best way, because I wasn't going to yell like my dad. I wasn't going to dominate, and I wasn't going to be this angry person all the time. I went the complete opposite, and I thought that would make everything better, but I was also in a massive depression. Depression is throughout my family, and it's something that, I just pull back with everything, right? And I'm just down for these long periods of time. So I don't notice, I don't take notice, I don't see what she's going through. And also I thought it was a great idea that my brother had just cheated on his wife with their 1-year-old, that he should move in with us right at that time, and then that he should work with me, and we should build a barbecue and a bar and work together and come home and drink and have a good time. And
remember, I was very afraid of that drinking.
Your microphone.
Because I know what that drinking led to, right? So the drinking really got me fearful. Oh, men lie, men cheat. Again, all of those fears, right? And so in this next section, we are going to go right into table groups. You're like, wow, you tell us this horrid story, and then you want us to share horrid stories. So in this, you get to be as surface or, as deep as you want. But all you're doing and all we're meant to do in this is for you to just think about one thing even in all of these areas of how did it shape your backstory? How did it shape you? And so we've got some questions. Do they all have the questions? Okay, great. And then we're going to actually wrap it in two ways. We're going to do like a quick wrap at the end, and then Graham's going to come up after, and then we are actually going to talk about the covenant next week. So you guys are actually going to see where it landed, because obviously we're still married, and we're a little more authentic than we used to be. So go ahead in your table group.
Being authentic is very important. I know in your table groups, I just want to say, sharing, there is a release, right? There is freedom in sharing. And it's important, though, that you're safe and you're not correcting each other at the table. You're not offering solutions. You're just listening. If someone talks, you're just listening. You're being a safe person. And That's how you open up for intimate conversation with complete strangers. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying there is a freedom that comes out when you can do that and you can express yourself.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, hi guys, welcome back. One thing that I love to see is the chatter, because that means that Dean and I aren't the only ones with a backstory. So thank you for helping us, reassuring us. We would have freaked out if you guys were like, we have nothing to say. Everything's wonderful. So, so thank you for participating in the table groups. I know it can be uncomfortable, but the more we share together, that's how God created us to be. You know, you guys get to be that, what Kurt Thompson would say in Soul of Shame, cloud of witnesses or carpet bearers for each other in our journey. So, I guess you're noticing by hearing everyone's backstory that married life is actually not a straight line up. And so it's a little bit colorful and squiggly. And so, you know, all of it is messy in our mental, emotional, our physical, and our spiritual space. And what I love that Julie Slattery does in this book is she helps put things into perspective, and she creates a structure as you guys go into the next couple. How many more weeks do you guys have? 2 more. Oh my. 3 more. Okay. All right. Whew, this is quick. Okay. The pillars are amazing of what she's talked about. So you guys are in for a treat in the next 3 weeks. I want to just kind of let you know what we learned in this one, because we're really not going to talk about how we wrapped it and how we went into healing and recovery until next week with the covenant. But I want you to know what we learned in all of this, which is we had to learn what lies we believed about ourselves. We had to learn what expectations we were bringing into the marriage and of ourselves and of each other. We also had to learn what were we assuming about each other. What was I assuming about Dean when he was detached and depressed? What was I assuming? What was he assuming about me when I was so rigid in those finances? So those 3 things is what tripped us up the most, and we had to do a lot of healing around those areas. So there's 2 scriptures that I want you guys to think about and land on this week. Oh, before I go into that, in that learning, I want you guys to kind of think about this week, going into next week. What lies have you believed because of your backstory? What expectations do you have about yourself in the marriage and of your partner? And what assumptions do you make in behavior without really fact-checking it? Where do you get tripped up? So, of course, this one is a very common one, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Just trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. He'll set your path straight. So it's trying to make sure we're not trying to figure out marriage in our own understanding. We really need God's help in it and trusting him in the process. The hardest part is the gray. It's the gray area of how do I do these little pieces? But God knows exactly what the end result will be, and he plans things well, as you know. When we trust, he will put it right. He will make it right. As Romans 8:28 says, he will make all of this together for good. Everything Dean and I went through, we had to learn and grow from, but it made us stronger and it made us better.
And still going through.
Yeah.
It's never like we've arrived. You know, a lot of people will ask us, Matt, we just want to get like to where you are. And I'm like, we're nowhere, right? We're still on the trail up. It's a never-ending journey.
Which is why this marriage ministry is so important, that Venture created, and that Graham and Carla are creating space for you guys, because we are better together. And it's a lifelong journey. We're constantly learning new tools to put in our toolbox. And so with that said, next week we're going to go into the power of the covenant, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about how we went into that recovery and healing place knowing that. Graham.